Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to this weekly live session. Today, I want to share with you what are some of the top 7 legal mistakes in raising capital as a software company. So if you are a software company looking for funding to grow or scale your business, then you'll want to know what are the 7 most frequent legal mistakes in raising capital and how to prevent them today. I know that the funding process can be painstaking, can be frustrating, and can be time consuming. And most of the times you may find yourself in a situation where you're wondering, what is required in order for me to raise capital from a legal standpoint? Investors may have different requests. It may turn out to be confusing for you from time to time. And so in this session, I want to share with you what is the actual bottom line? What will get you from where you are today to where you want to be, namely having the funds in your company, and what will get you there fast. And this is based on my experience with raising capital and getting funding for technology companies, and really having a look at what really made a difference throughout the years in speeding up this process, in making it simpler for the founders, but also for the companies themselves, because you really have to pull your resources together. You really have to get your finance department on board, your legal department on board. You have effectively an operational slowdown because of the entire fundraising process. And I'm here to tell you that it's possible to go through this process fast and efficient. And today I want to share with you how. And like I said, this is based on my experience working in raising capital and what that looked like and what we were able to improve and make more efficient and more effective for the companies we were working with. And before we go forward, just let me know in the comments, where are you joining in from? Where are you watching this from? I look forward to meeting you and finding out more about you and your company and your fundraising process. Good. So let's dive deep into this. Now, one of the basic, most frequent mistakes is not organizing your data room in advance. It doesn't matter at what stage in the fundraising process you are, whether you are pre-seed or seed, or in a series A, B, C, it doesn't matter. What really will make a difference is that you have a data room organized in advance that contains, depending at the stage of the fundraising that you are in, at least a minimum amount of legal information regarding your company and your business. Now, not organizing your data room in advance is a very frequent mistake. And this comes mostly from, you as a business person want to focus on developing the product or on improving processes. And ultimately, what you are focusing on day to day is making sure that you are onboarding clients or customers and that their experience is a stellar one. So somehow organizing your legal documentation comes at the very last point. Or for some of you, you may not even know that this is an important requirement for investors. Why? Because in addition to the figures and information that you are going to provide to them in the beauty contest kind of journey that you're on, they will want to see that these figures are backed by something solid, and that is, amongst others, your legal documentation, but also financial statements and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to go into the finance part. I'm going to go into the legal part. Now, not having the data room organized in advance is costing you, in fact, not just time, because you will be going into an actual rush on the day the investor comes through your door and says, this all looks great, and I love your story of how you've gotten here and what you want to accomplish, but now, show me some of your documents. And at that point, you literally go into a panic attack because you have to get organized and put everything together. So it doesn't only save you that time, it also saves you money, because there may be investors who are looking also at other companies, and for sure they are. Some of them are looking at 100, hundreds and hundreds of funding requests. And it is also a question of how fast you can move in this process, right? How ready you are. So basically, it's going to cost you money, because this may put in jeopardy your chances of getting that funding. So, if you want to avoid all this friction, if you want to avoid slowing down your operations in the process, and if you want to avoid wasting money and not accessing those funds as soon as possible, then your key takeaway from this is to create your virtual data room today. Good. Now, and I'm not going to go into the discussion today of how much do we disclose. Do we sign confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement? We can do a separate conversation on that, and I will share with you what are some considerations for you to take into account, but also what are some of the considerations of investors when they ask for access to information, and how far can you go with that? Do you have a term sheet sign or not? And when is the right moment to disclose, to make disclosures to the investors? So we put that aside and we take it for another session. I want to go now into the second point, which is not having transferred all your assets in the right legal entity. What do I mean by that? Well, it may turn out that there is some trademark that was left out. Maybe the founder, you as a founder, are still holding that trademark in your own name. Or maybe it's on some old company that you used in the beginning, but the company on which you're raising capital is a different legal entity. And it may also be that some essential contract that you completely forgot about is signed on another legal entity, which is not the entity on which you are planning on raising capital, on getting the funding. So this type of situation can also, raise an eyebrow, really determine the investor consultants to say, hey, we need you to do everything necessary to bring this asset, this intellectual property, these essential contracts into the legal entity that is accessing the funding. And this may turn into a condition precedent to accessing the funds. Or in some cases, if it turns out that it's impossible or really difficult to transfer that asset, because let's say you are at a stage in your development, in your growth, in your business, that that asset has accrued an important value, and then you might need to get a valuation, and you might need to transfer it at the market price, which is revealed by that independent third-party valuation. So it can also turn out that this is a deal breaker. This is something you want to look at in advance before you go into talks with your investors. And how you do that, you just run a quick audit of everything you own in the company and transfer or assign those assets as soon as possible. Third is not securing your intellectual property rights or trade secrets or, important assets. And when you don't have airtight confidentiality and non-disclosure and IP assignment clauses, not just with your employees, with your staff, with your team, with your contractors, but also with your business partners, what happens is that this raises a serious question around the ownership of assets in your company and the practices. And you want to bring integrity into that. So the key action point for you to take away from this is to update all your contracts, even if that in some instances that may mean consolidating something retroactively. Fourth is not taking advantage of tax benefits. Again, this may be something that either you're not aware of, or maybe you delegated to someone in your team and you were trusting them that they're doing, the proper research and implementing the proper measures. There may be tax benefits that are available in the jurisdiction where your company is incorporated and operating that you are not aware of, or there may be some tax credit that you haven't claimed. However that looks, you need to have a look, run a tax audit, so to say, to understand what are some tax benefits that I haven't taken advantage of. How can I optimize this? This is an important component of profit maximization. And you're going to ask, why does this become relevant in the legal side of raising funding? Well, it is important because this can significantly impact the terms of the investment. And investors will want to know and understand first that there are no liabilities when it comes to your tax position, but also they will want to see that you are taking advantage of everything that is available to you in this respect. So do that tax audit today. Don't put it off for another minute. Fifth is not maintaining the proper compliance processes and procedures. I know it has become increasingly challenging to, keep this on track. There is increasingly so much more regulation than we used to have 10 years ago, especially within the European Union. The attempt and actual exercise of harmonizing a lot of the rules has transformed into pieces of legislation, regulations, which are applicable across the board. You don't need any implementing national legislation for that. The data protection regulation is a very good example of that. Privacy in electronic communications. So what else? Anti-money laundering. These are all domains that are evolving from secondary legislation and have evolved into regulations, which you need to keep up to and make sure not just that you have procedures on paper in your company, but the processes, the workflows. Whatever is happening in your company, in your day-to-day business, is reflecting those principles and rules as prescribed by law. And so what you need to do here is to run a compliance audit to ensure that, first of all your documentation, all your procedures are up to date, your external policies, but also your internal processes and policies. And second, that in actuality, what is happening in your operations is reflecting those principles and rules, and everything is designed in such a way that you are in compliance with all these requirements. Good. Now, sixth is having an unclear deal structure and terms. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. I've seen it very, very clearly. What happens is you go and meet with your investors. With some of them, you're going to develop a relationship, ideally. Maybe it's only going to be one, actually. Or maybe they're going to be your lead investor who is enrolling other investors in the process, in the round. And with some of them, yeah, it's just not going to work out. But in this process, what is really, really important, if you come to an agreement in principle, which looks like, yeah, I really like your story, where you're coming from, where you're headed to, and I am interested in funding your business and your plans going forward. I am committed to being a part of that. What will really make a difference is you having very clear terms around the investment. What that looks like in practice is that you sign a term sheet, you get an indicative, letter of the deal terms, a proposal, so to say, from the investor, where they describe the amount of the investment, but also going a little bit into details as to the rights they would like to have in the company, how they would like to exercise those rights. Are they getting a board seat? What is the valuation at which they're making the investment? What are the exit events, and what are going to be the triggers? So all of these things should, in principle, be addressed in this term sheet or in this document that they provide to you. And you can exchange a couple of drafts of this if you don't have enough clarity for yourself to embark on the due diligence process and so on and so forth. But it's really, really important that you have this clear in writing with them before you move any further. So make sure you get that term sheet or indicative proposal before anything else from your investor or lead investor. And last but not least is not having the right legal strategist by your side from the start. This is really, really important. You can go at this alone. I've already given you, these essential points and mistakes that you want to avoid before going into the room with your investor, and you can start implementing them today. And at the end of the day, I think what's really important is that you have a legal strategist by your side that really helps you clarify what are the implications of going down a certain investment structure, and how you can address that powerfully in the conversations, in the discussions, and in the negotiation that you're having with your investor. And also kind of to distinguish what is really important in that conversation, what to focus on, versus what can be, for instance, left to the lawyers to tackle with any details that will make the transaction complete. So if you have any questions regarding any of the above, I'm just going to wrap up now. And before I do so, I want to thank you again for joining me today in learning what are the 7 legal mistakes in raising capital that you as a software company can make. And we have seen that these are not organizing your data room in advance, not having transferred all your assets in the right legal entity, not securing your assets through NDAs and IP assignment clauses, not taking advantage of tax benefits, not maintaining the proper compliance processes and procedures, and having unclear deal structure and terms, and not having a legal strategist by your side from the start. Thank you for being here, and I will see you again next week, same time, same place. And if you have any questions and need support with any of this, book a free legal strategy session with me, and I'll be happy to support you.